Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sometimes I make snap decisions, and this is one of those times. This is a giant of a plant, which came in the big box full of plants from Beatrix. This is, I've done a new tag, Dendrobium chryseum. And quite honestly, Sunshine, you have fallen over for the last time. What's the way to stop a plant falling over? Turn it upside down and mount it. So that's what's going to happen. With great difficulty. I can't even get the plant in shot. This plant is over a metre tall. It's going to be pot bound, totally pot bound. I know that already, but I noticed this morning, just before it fell over, again, that it's got a lot of new growths just starting. So now's a good time to get it out of the pot and do something with it. That's if it will come out of the pot. I might even have to cut this pot off. In fact, I think I will. That is absolutely jammed full. And it's not going to come out. Right. We'll see if the scissors will do it. Yeah, I think actually a sharp knife might be better, because I'll mount it really easy with the ends of my fingers chopped off, won't I? I think that's just a little bit too thick for a knife. I know what we'll do. The snipper's out. As I say, this is absolutely jam-packed, and there'll be no guarantee that these roots are alive either, but at least some of them will be, that I'm sure. That should get it out. Oh. Trust me to get a tough blinking pot. Normally they're so flimsy you could tear them with your fingers, but this is a pretty sturdy one. It's still not going to come out. Whoa! Toughy pot. Don't know why you're resisting. Resistance is futile. You're coming out whether you like it or not. What are we doing now then? You're going to let go? Yes. Don't even think there's any media left in this pot. Unfortunately, an awful lot of these roots are not going to be able to be saved. I cannot pot it with a root ball like that. So I may even have to slice the roots and see what's left, just to get at it and separate some out. All of these roots around the top here are not worth hanging on to. And some of these down here aren't too bad, but it's chucking out loads of new growths at the moment. With those new growths will come new roots. So even if I damage a load of these roots, it won't be the end of the world for this plant. Well, some plants I wouldn't dream of doing that with, but I need to tease this down somehow into a spread of roots that I can get on a mount, which I can't do with a ball of roots. So somehow or other it's going to have to get reduced. As I say, I'm not even sure if there's much media left in here. It's just a solid root mass. Well, they're going to have to come off one way or the other. Somehow or other, I've got to be able to separate these out. So if I slice in through that circle and then see what happens. Because I don't think a lot of these top roots, most of these top roots here are actually not very good. If I peel that back round, the dead ones around the outside will come off, leaving some around the inside, perhaps. As I say, I'm not fussed about keeping all the roots on this. I don't want them all, basically, for once. I'm actually repotting a plant and I don't want to keep all the roots. I want a lot of them off so that I can do something with it. Some of these roots have wrapped around the pot, and by cutting down through this, they're going to get cut. But they will leave one end attached to the plant and one end that's been severed. Oh, there's a solid lump of something in the middle here. It's the end of a cane that's rotted off. I think this has been in this pot a very long time. Oh, this is going to do this the world of good coming out of here. That is really bad broken down moss. A solid lump of it. So it looks brutal, but being this type of dendrobium, I've been growing these long enough to know that they will generate a new root system. But I need to get this out. I've got a feeling, I think I've just found the end of another stake in here somewhere. I think this has been in this pot a very long time. Now this often happens with nurseries. They buy in a load of pretty good plants, probably from somewhere they shouldn't be buying them. Yeah, there's another stake. I haven't had that before in a pot. Ends of stakes that have rotted off. It does go to show how long it's been in here, doesn't it? But, you know, they get potted up as medium-sized plants, say, in their country of origin. And they may get potted on once, but then they're brought over to the EU and put in nurseries that don't want to repot them or have anything to do them. What they want to do is sell them. And so they're ignored. They get watered, they get fed, and that's about it. They probably get some bug preventative medicine and some fungicide as part of a routine sort of exercise, but they don't want to deal with them. So they just leave them in that pot in the hope that they will sell them and they become somebody else's problem. And this has now become my problem. And a problem it's going to be. There's going to be more than enough roots left on this to get them out going, that's for sure. Oh. Oops, there's the stake. This is hard work. You know, the last one I can remember doing like this was the Cymbidium. That was a massive tangle of solid roots in the pot. Hello, think we found another stake. Yep, another stake. Oh dear, what a stake to let a plant get in. Ah, criminal really, isn't it? I mean, I know Dendrobiums have a reputation for liking to be cosy in their pot, but that's gone beyond cosy. That's like 12 people sharing a room. Oh. The feeling I'm just going to have to hack this. Get this root ball down. And we've got mess all over the floor. I'm trying to hold the plant away from the base because the new growths are about ½ an inch long and they are right at the base, so I'm trying not to get anywhere near that because obviously they're fragile. I'd like to keep as many as possible. Still not small enough to mount. I'll have to do some more hacking here. So most of these roots that are wrapped around the top of the pot are the non-viable ones anyway. But by clearing the decks, it will allow the plant to push roots out from the base of the plant without having to battle their way through this tangled, knotted mess. We can get into some decent fresh moss. And with these number of new growths on here, it will produce those roots. I'm not mucking about. It's not a if, it's a when. As long as I leave enough on here to actually allow the plant to carry on hydrating, that's all I really want to do. Okay, I'm going to get the tap on this now because we're down to the real broken down moss at the very base of the plant. And I'll see what untangles itself under the tap and then we'll see what's left. I'll be back. Right, 20 minutes later, with a totally bunged up sink, I've got some semblance of the base of a plant. And once I got in here, you know, this plant was once potted quite well. It was in moss with huge amounts of this grit. So it would have been a nice airy mix of grit and moss, which would have been wonderful when it was a younger plant. It went downhill from there. Now I've got a wide mount, yeah, and it's a sturdy mount. It's quite a large plant. It would look silly on a small mount, but now I'm going to do something you're not going to like, and I'll try and show you why. It's not going to work, is it? Now I'm sure a lot of you are horrified, but what have I done? I've now got a flat back to the plant that will sit on the mount. That one's actually gone into several pieces, but all of the pieces have got new growths on them. So I've now got something I can actually mount. Look at all the grit that's coming out. Still didn't wash it all out under the tap. Quite honestly, if some of that grit stays there, it really doesn't matter. In fact, it will be good. Now we have a very heavy plant. There's no way in any stretch of the imagination it's knocking all me flipping tools over it so long. As I said, this thing's over 1 metre long. But there's no way that fishing line would actually hold that in place without having to tie it so tight that it would cut in. So I'm actually going to wire it this time, which I don't do very often. But anyway, let's get an amount of moss. Just because it's a big plant doesn't mean to say it needs loads of moss, but it needs enough to hydrate the base of that plant. And this piece of bark has got some very deep fissures in it, which I actually want to fill up with moss. Perfect place for new roots to get and stay. And then those roots will stay virtually permanently hydrated, which will be good, because obviously some of these are going to grow, it's going to grow some new roots that will be aerial basically. But I don't normally put moss under my mounts, but I haven't really got a lot of choice this time because the roots will come out round the back of the plant, and I want the plant quite near the top. See, there are some viable roots. They're not brilliant, but they're not rubbish. Let's put it that way. I'm just going to have to plonk this just till I can get a piece of wire around to hold it in place. And I'm going to sort of put it back together again, but it's got a much flatter face on the moss. Otherwise it would have just been a heap. You know, it would have been a bit silly. So that's about where I want it. Now I need some wire. This is where I poke my eye out. I like doing it in one piece of wire and just wrap it round and then attach the loops. And I always end up with probably too much, but I'd rather have too much than too little. And the big long dangly bit's obviously got a sharp end on it. And I'll be back, I've forgotten my tools. Right, that's better. You can't cut wire with scissors. Well, you can, but it won't do your scissors any good. Better to have something designed for the job. Those are my bonsai wire cutters. The actual leverage you get on those tools, I mean, they've been designed over hundreds and hundreds of years, probably based out in Japan. And if you look at how tiny those blades are and where the pivot point is, Just think how much leverage you've got on those handles. That'll cut through wire nearly 1/8 of an inch thick, those things. Tools for the job, as they say. Right, I'm going to get a loop of wire round to hold the plant in place, and then I'll think about putting some more moss on. I just want the thing secure first. We just go round once. The fact that it's wire, it sort of holds itself in place and gets tangled up with the hook. Right, out of my way. Right, now we'll add a bit more moss. As I say, I don't want a huge amount of moss on it, but it's got to stay hydrated. It's just had an incredible amount of root, I'll call it disturbance, when in actual fact, proper word would be damage, I suspect. But nonetheless, it's still got enough roots to hydrate this plant. And if the roots take off like a good one and start climbing all over the mount, I can always tease some of this moss off if I think there's too much. But initially, I want enough to keep it hydrated. Now this is a bit of an awkward plant. This grows as an epiphyte and a lithophyte, and it comes from the Western Himalayas, moving across effectively through everywhere. Eastern Himalayas, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, southern China. In other words, it's common as muck. It occurs naturally in a lot of places. The downside is it grows quite high up. It's a cool grower. So it's going to love my winter, isn't it? It's not going to like the summer so much. It'll have to lump it. It's got no choice. Right. And the beauty of wire is it doesn't have to be pulled tight to grip a plant, because it stays where it's put. Now, do I need one around the base of the plant? I don't think I do. So I'm just going to hold this with that number of loops. That's fine. More than enough. And then we'll come round the back. There's my original bit. Just literally loop those two together now. Just twist them round. Cut my end off so I don't poke my eye out. I don't do that with fishing line, but I have been known to get incredibly close. A piece of that long dangly wire went right up under my glasses once and got so close I thought, we're not going to do that again, because next time it might actually get in my eye. So we don't want none of that, do we? I'm just going to cut a little bit of wire off the end of there to hold me tag on. Which way up? That way up. I can just loop that round the wire that's already there. Tag permanently attached. That's not going anywhere. Right, there we go. What I'm going to do now is I'll take that out in the grow room and hang it, and then take the camera out there and we'll look at the whole plant out there. Right, there we go then. I'm actually standing in the lounge to try and get the whole plant in. It's a very big plant, and I think it will do a lot better hanging. This is the one that, when I got it out of the big box, worried me quite a lot. It's got an awful lot of spider mite damage on it, but the critters that caused the problem appear to be long since gone. I mean, I've inspected this plant on a frequent basis. There is nothing living on it, so it's old damage. Because to get the damage this bad, not only must there have been a lot of them, but they would have needed to have been there a while as well. This sort of damage caused, you know, that looks like this, that's not an overnight sensation. That takes time, and it takes a hell of an infestation to get it as bad as that. So anyway, you can see now I've got quite a nice flat base. Yeah. If I'd left that in a ball, that would just not have mounted very well. So even though there's separate plants on there, nobody will ever be able to tell. And give it a year or two, it'll look like it's always been on that mount. So that's it. And then the idea is it can go somewhere up here. So I get it down, and it can go literally right up in the roof. This isn't its permanent place. It'll go nearer the window. But you can see now that, you know, with the other long cane Dendrobiums, it's not perhaps as long as it at first looked, because some of the others are even longer. And obviously the ones that are in bloom at the moment I want up this end so that I can see them. They're also shorter canes. So this one will just move along a bit with the long cane ones. It'll fit in quite nicely there. And another point to notice is this looks incredibly like it's going to bloom soon on some of these older canes. This is not a late winter, early spring bloomer. It's a late spring, early summer bloomer. And these are buds, so we are going to get some blooms on that. I don't know how long down the line, but there's quite a lot of buds, and they weren't there when I got the plant. Excuse me. So there are buds forming in places, so we should see the blooms on that this year, which are good. Anyway, I don't do biggies like that very often. As I say, that's overall probably not far off an hour's work to do that one plant. Most of which was trying to untangle the roots and hack the thing out of the pot. The actual mounting didn't take long, but I'm pleased with it like that, and now it will never ever fall over and cause me to say obscene language ever again. Live like that from now on. And all the new growths that are tucked up in there. I saw 4 or 5 embryo, you know, tiny little growths, sort of like half an inch long. But there are some a little bit longer that are starting to push out. They looked a little weak. Well, that's understandable given what was in that pot. You know, a lot of dead roots and no room to move. So now any new roots have got some place to be. And hopefully we will get a mouthful of roots by the end of the year. Good one, pleased with that. The only thing with the blooms are they're waxy yellow blooms, but the notes on this actually say short-lived. I don't know if this is a one-day bloomer, you're going to have to go. But, you know, short-lived can mean, you know, the normal, well, a lot of the deciduous Dendrobiums, you're looking at 10 to 14 days. Well, I'll live with 10 to 14 days. I'm not living with a one-day bloom. You know, there are some out there, blooms open and the next day they fall. There'd have to be a hell of a lot of them in succession for me to keep that one. Anyway, job done. Thanks for watching. See you next time.